Tom,
What's up, Matt? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, man?
I'm all right, man. This is the end of the school year. I think
Oh
you're
my
coming
God.
up on that too with your kids, and
Yeah.
every night is something.
So today, on top of doing, a marathon workday, I also had
Mhm.
a tennis tournament of 4 games, followed by a clarinet concert,
Wow.
followed by this, followed by going back to work to actually get anything
Ah,
accomplished today. So,
see, that's fun. I've found that like as the day has been changing, and we're doing some renovations on the basement.
right.
And it's totally screwed up my entire routine. And I'm like, the days are longer. I can get up at 6 now instead of 5.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's like,
Right.
no, you're not getting the damn thing done, man.
No, nothing. Yeah, no, and I've been sticking to my morning routine, but sometimes like
That's great.
6:30 comes and I'm like, no.
I'm still meditating every day. I'm like,
Oh yeah,
I got
yeah.
to take some photos for this book. I got to do this. I got to do that. That can wait.
Mm-hmm. That
And
is
and
precisely the problem.
I think once the kids are out of school and I don't have to get up, I can set my time later, and it's like I still do everything, can still get to work on time, and everything's
Sure.
amazing.
Yeah, no, I have yet to find that I can do everything and everything's amazing just yet. But
Oh
I
no,
have
no, no, no!
days.
It's a pipe dream. I'm well
Yeah.
aware of that.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That's funny. Uh,
It's
um,
like I think it's coming, but
yeah. Anything aside from it's actually I take strange solace in the fact that you are also inundated with end of school
oh,
situation.
you tend to find like, I mean, you remember it, like, oh, that first friend of yours got married. The next
Sure.
thing you know, everybody you know gets married, and then that first person pops out a kid,
Right.
and then it's like,
now,
oh
yeah.
shit, we're all
Right.
having kids now.
Right.
It's
I
like,
guess that this is happening.
and this is it, and like you and I are pretty much the same age, like within a
Yeah.
year or so, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so funny where I'm like an older dad. I didn't
That,
realize that. I'm like, what happened in
that's
Maryland?
funny.
Did you all get knocked up when you were 12? Like,
Some of them.
some of them, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't have kids until I was in my 30s.
Yeah. Ours were later as well.
Yeah. But to your point, I mean, I got plenty of, I'm in my mid 40s and I got plenty of friends with kids younger than me that are in their mid 50s.
Yeah, very true. But I also have friends that are my age that are shopping for colleges, and it's like, oh shit, I was supposed to put stuff away for that?
Oh yeah. Wasn't that going to be
like,
later?
Wasn't like, wait a minute. I got a few years before I got to figure out whether or not I'm giving a kid a car.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. We're having that conversation already.
Oh God, and our older ones, the school only goes to 8th grade, and it's like, I came from, Long Island, where like even the bad public schools were better than the national rankings. I mean, they were,
Well, I feel like that's
and
how it is here in Baltimore County too, where I'm at. It's like the schools are great, and
well,
like
that was
nationally,
it. Where I live, it's like you got to pay for private school here.
Oh, do you?
Versus like, most public schools, those kids are going to college,
Though I was on a campus the other day for a soccer tryout, locally, and wasn't really familiar with the school. There's a bunch of other private schools here that I'm way more familiar with just because we live near 5 of them, like all real close to us.
Right.
So, yeah, in that cluster. So went to one that I wasn't really familiar with, and I looked it up while I had an hour and a half, soccer tryout, and you can only check so many emails before you're like, it's gorgeous out here. I'm on a soccer field. I'm just gonna So I'm like looking around. I mean, they've got a horse jumping ring and a science center. I'm like, and I was like sitting there going, man, this is crazy. Like, look at the opportunities that these people have. Then I look it up.
It's insane.
Then I look it up and I find out that it's the number 1 most expensive school in the state of Maryland. For in private school sector, right? And I'm like looking at the top 10 list, which is kind of a funny primer for tonight, right? But like I was looking at this top 10 list, right, of like all the most expensive schools in Maryland and what their annual fees were, and I went to a Catholic school, and so like I was lucky then, but my option then was not good, like very, very not good, like not really an option, not good, right? And So like that was kind of more out of necessity, but like I wonder if it would be different, like what kind of different human I'd be now if my parents had raised me where I live now, where you wouldn't have to necessarily make that decision, right? Like a private school education is where I live, not at all mandatory. You know. So I don't know, just an interesting. So I'm looking this up and I'm like,
such a weird thing.
I'm looking it up and I was like, do these kids have that big of a leg up spending $34,000 a year? I think it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, $34,000 a year to send your kid to kindergarten. Like,
it's insane. I was having the same conversation with my cousin in New York, right? So here I am saying, like, Long Island public schools are great. Yeah. You want a Catholic education, there's plenty of options that are reasonable.
Right.
And then one of the big high schools, just to fuck with people. Yeah. I swear to God, they started doing 6th through 8th. Oh. Because they reached capacity. They had a waiting list, 9th through 12. And they gave priority to 6 through 8, but now you're laying down 30-something K a year for middle school.
Yeah.
It's like those bastards.
I mean, but like, I don't know. I'm torn between this because like, obviously like, I think one of these schools has like a planetarium. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's like, you're
better than most colleges. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, look, man, I'm a huge astronomy nerd. Like, dude, if my school would have had a fucking, planetarium,
you would have been there every day. Yeah.
Every fucking day. Like it would have been like completely. And so, maybe that means that I'm sitting here having this conversation with you as an astrophotographer or as or something like that. Right. Or maybe not. But my point is like my, circumstances would be very different there. And certainly, I mean, I saw like 20 things about horses. If I was a rider,
right
access
there
to that would be incredibly, or maybe I actually only became a writer because I had access to that, what I mean? Like, so, I mean, I don't know.
We're at a small Catholic school now and my older one's playing lacrosse and we've seen some campuses and I'm like, they've got Frisbee golf.
Oh yeah.
They've got why we don't even have enough field.
Yeah, right.
Like, I don't think our lacrosse field is official size.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, right. So, but I mean, look, doesn't that tap into the whole, I think the thing that kind of gets me with that is you're talking about catering to what fractions of a single percentage point of the United
it's
States.
crazy.
Right. Like that is such a small sliver of society. Right.
Yeah.
But guess what? Those are the people that get to enjoy some of the cooler parts about what we talk about on this show.
Right? And like that's, I think even last week when we were talking, and I gotta say those two people from the Ancestor Project, Dre and Charlotte, are like two of my favorite people in Baltimore.
Yeah, no, they're
and really her saying you got to learn to decolonize your mind.
Oh my God,
that kind of shook me a little, and I'm like, that is definitely a privilege that only the super wealthy have.
So here's my divide on this, though, and here's where my personality splits. And I think that's at a core of what makes this topic so interesting to me in general is this edge that I ride on this, where on one hand, the school I was talking about institutionalizes, normalizes, and perpetuates abject segregation, right? Like, I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, 100%. Like, but hold on, we don't have to now say that that's a bad thing. We're just making an observation, right? It is just an observation that this rich, very smart, very small community people aren't likely to spread that very wide, right? Like it's going to be, you're going to be in a group. And then when the Jackie Insinger with Spark Brilliance, when we were talking to her, and we're going to have her on the show soon, and I can't wait to have this talk with her. But she had all this research about how many orders of magnitude more successful the outcomes are when you're in a group of disparate opinions, right? So versus if you're in a group of similar and opinions. So basically, the more homogenous your group is, the less productive your ideas are. Essentially.
Why? Right? Because it's an echo chamber, right? Well, I mean, it's got to be.
There's no ingenuity. You put like a crazy, like polar personalities in a room together, the outcome, and say you can't leave this room until this problem is fixed. Statistically, anyway, they've got orders of magnitude more chances of success, right? So like on the one hand, my observation there would be like, well, look, this group isn't going very wide, right? It's going to be a group of like-minded people more than likely. And why they might have shades of gray, obviously we're all human beings. They're not going to be like a dude from West Baltimore versus like dude who goes to that school. There's not going to be any sort of mixing of outside cultures.
Most of those dudes are all going to have khakis and blue blazers in their closet in tenfold. Yeah.
And then on the other side, we have this stark observation that those people are the ones who are starting companies that actually make and research all the shit that you and I love so dearly. And if it if it weren't for that exact same group of people, most of the shit we talk about would not even exist.
Well, but that, I think that also speaks to part of the mission of this show is like, how do we, I don't want to use the word disrupt, but I'll say demonetize, democratize, and disseminate this. Like, like we've talked in the past, like, oh, here's red light panels, but look, you don't have to buy this $8,000 unit. Right. Here's other ways to get that. And is there a free way? Okay, we're going to talk about that too.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. But like, like I said, the real innovation here is coming from huge pockets of money, right? Like when those people come at this thing, they have a ton of research. They're doing a ton of marketing. Like there's,
But I also feel like, and I should let you finish that.
No. I mean, listen, I'm just riffing on it. I'm just saying.
No. And I agree with you, but I also feel like they're in because there's a financial investment. The marketing may be more valuable to them than the actual product itself.
There's no question. Listen,
it's totally the sizzle. No. It's not always the steak.
No, and you're totally right. And then by the time, look, half the time, by the time we talk about it here, the people are already on to another idea. Right?
They've already sold the company, or they're already sued out of business, or hey, we did the thing, it doesn't work. Sorry.
Yeah. And there's so much of that, but like, here, the thing is that group of people that could go to a school like that, right? Mm-hmm. They have friends that also can pull the same kinds of levers they can pull, but just different levers. So if you put a bunch of those people in a room and everybody has a different awesome lever to pull, now you've got 10 levers.
Startup capital. You got everything behind you.
Yeah, you got everything. You got, this family owns an advertising agency. That family owns a research company. They own manufacturing thing. Like
and I would argue that those schools themselves are pretty much, that's what that is. It's a giant networking system.
No, absolutely. So that's what I said. So when I go to a place like that, right, just to bring this home, we don't need to dwell on this, but like to sit at a place like that is both, kind of really disheartening because you're like, these people are not going to make the world more diverse.
No, no. It will get definitively the same shade.
Right. This does not necessarily solve problems, but it's also really the root of a bunch of really good stuff, both progress and research and opportunity. So it's just, I don't know. It's hard for me it was a conflicting moment for me because I was like, oh, well, I don't really know how to feel about that. This is, but it was so out of what my wheelhouse is in terms of like everyday experiences that it forced me to look it up because I was like, what world am I sitting in right now? Like, is that
I do that too. These people have seaplane money.
Yeah, right. I'm like, what is going on? So we touched quick on it, but just to get off of this crazy little tangent, but so we'd done a list before, right? And I liked that episode, and we said then what we're going to say, or I'm going to say real quick anyway, is we're probably going to do lists again and again.
Look, it's low-hanging fruit.
Well, they're fun to talk about.
They're fun to talk about. Yeah. I mean, everybody does them.
Well, everybody does them. And here's what I really like about them, to be honest, is like they are sort of the canary, right, in the coal mine.
Oh, absolutely.
Because these lists are driven by marketing and affiliate dollars and everything. Yeah. So like if you see, 10 top 10 lists and the same topic is on 5 of them, chances are the tone of the room says this is an important topic.
And Matt, to speak to that, There's there like I get quoted a lot in articles, and I do pretty well. But when they reach out, I'm like, motherfucker, I've seen 7 articles on facial gua sha already.
Yeah.
Like you're not original. And it's like, no, they don't want original.
No,
and you know when they actually quote me? When I read somebody else's article and I go, all right, I'm going to say that in my own words.
That's so funny.
It's like, you don't like, and I think we even mentioned this, like, you know, like I took a best-selling author course, and they were like, go pick up a New York Times bestseller and read that, and then change the characters.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah, what?
You know, it's like,
it's so funny. Yeah.
It is so funny. We're an echo chamber.
We're watching the old shows with the kids, and the show we're watching right now is Castle, about the murder writer who partners up with a detective and because he's friends with the mayor. But like, it's funny, he's got a poker group, and I'm not a literary guy, so I don't really know the authors' names, but he's got a poker group that's all other famous writers, like a Michael Crichton and a Stephen King, you know, and it's really them on the show. Like, and again, I don't know who, so they're there, but it's really funny because it's like literally like them making fun of each other and poking each other, but it's all to get them to develop their stories, right? Like, and so it's kind of funny, but I'm like wondering, like, they're not doing that because they don't know the formula. Like they're razzing their friend because there was something wrong with the formula, right? Like, I mean, he wasn't in here.
That doesn't work. You got to change that.
Doesn't work. You got to change that. Yeah. What do you mean? You can't make it the girlfriend? What the fuck? That doesn't fit the narrative at all. Like, you know, like, and it's but yeah, so we talked about a couple of these, but I thought this one was like an interesting one to kind of talk about, and there's a couple that I'm going to mix in with this as well.
Yeah, dude, do it, because there's so much cross-referencing and overlap, you know?
Right. Oh no, totally. So I think the first 2 things on this list, and I think these 2 are pretty much in all of them, and I'm going to put them together, although most of these lists would actually put them separately, but digital healthcare and tracking vitals, because to me, I mean, those are absolutely different things, but at the same time, they're really sort of so codependent on one another that it's like there's, you know,
and I almost like there was a market driven by COVID here, right? We were all home,
right? Well, we're all home, but again, and listen, COVID definitely did not hurt the self-quant group. Right.
No,
like that
did not.
It was like that group definitely dug in deep on that train. But here's the thing though, like I think it's funny because a list is just going to say digital healthcare tracking vitals. And you know, as you said, as you make a photocopy of this to the next guy who writes the same article and the next guy who writes the same list, what does tracking vitals mean? Why do we want to do it? Because like my parents would read that and say, this is for crazy people like Matt who are out there with like 10 watches and a ring and a fucking this and a that and a headband and
something up their nose, something in their ear, something in their ass.
Yeah, right. We're just like, they're like, you're fucking weird. It's weird people. My dad would just like gloss past this in 2 seconds. Right now, you take somebody like some of our, you know, more, you know, over the edge, you know, self-quantification kind of guys, and they're going to read that and they're going to probably pause there for 45 minutes while they recite off all the wearables that they've got, you know, and so it's like a completely different read. And I just think it's funny that, and then they put links in here for like a tag watch, right? Yeah. Which is funny because the tag watch isn't even really what somebody who's wearing a wearable would even really.
Well, you know, but that's the high ticket item, right?
But that's the thing. It's
there's
like
probably a referral thing there. Yeah,
right. And it's just
why am I going to try and get a referral for a Apple Watch when Tag has a $4,000 watch?
Yeah, right, exactly. So now I'm going to get my 20% or whatever for referral. But like tracking vitals, like in here, it's funny because you could also see the slant of the people writing it, right? And so Tag Heuer, right, is very different than if it had Aura, Vialite, and Human Charger as you know, or
as wearables, right?
As wearables,
they got a Fitbit, which is I would say is pretty accessible for people. Fitbit has different price points. They're easy to use. It's a fancy pedometer with some really nice features. there's nothing wrong with it, but like,
Sure.
if you're a runner, you're probably going to go with a Garmin. If you're, you know, if you're a biohacker, it's going to be
Yeah, but my Garmin's for triathlon guys, and it's like mine does like will go into a triathlon mode where it'll just go from swim, bike, run the more you hit the lap button, right? Like, and it's got my settings for each one, everything. Yeah, but I wouldn't count that as like a wearable I mean, it's a wearable for when I'm at a race. It's not a wearable.
But it's not a everyday kind of thing.
Yeah, like I'm not wearing that all the time. My Oura Ring, I haven't taken off in like 3 years. So like that I definitely count as like a, you know, as a permanent addition. I mean, I essentially made it my wedding band. I mean, there's no.
Yeah, I gotcha.
You know, so I got to wear a ring there anyway, right? So I might as well pull extra function out of it. Yeah. So and digital health, I have to tell you, it has been a new thing for me. I got that with the concierge doc experiment I'm doing at the moment. It's all online.
Yeah.
So all the tests and everything that I've done, labs, everything, it's all digital. And I am recently into this trend quite a bit.
Well, the reporting, you still go give your blood. You still go.
Oh yeah. I'm talking about the
get the exam. Yeah.
But there's a longitudinal, what is it? Longitudinal gain here. Like I can look at my health back now from now forward, right? Like I can. Like,
well, you know, and that's the digitizing your records. You know, the actual.
Well, that's exactly right. But which doesn't exist. I've been to 48 doctors over the last 20 years. You know.
Yeah, I mean that was funny when they were selling us EHRs, these electronic health record platforms, right? The idea was I would be able to push a button. You moved across the country. You saw somebody else.
Sure.
Boom, my notes are there. And it's like, well, then 10,000 EHRs developed and none of them talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all proprietary, and they're all like, well, no, I got to download it. I got to scan it. I got to print it. I got to send it to you. Like you didn't fix anything. And the only ones that really survived that were these big hospital chains where it's all within, like, if you go to MedStar, it's any MedStar. Right, you know, right. So I had a patient come in once and he's like, you're supposed to be on EHR. You should be able to pull my records up if I give you authority. And it's like, yeah, that's not how that works. They won't let me.
Right. Yeah. But it is neat though. Like once you have it going, I mean, in theory, I could go to every doctor I've ever been to and, get my records, I guess, and digitize
them.
in
places like LabCorp, that translates. You just log in. You give somebody authority to look at your stuff, so you have that record. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so how far back does LabCorp hold?
I have no idea. I don't know. I think it's within the last few years, probably. Okay.
Yeah. See, I'm like looking forward to like 20 years from now, looking back on my medical records.
When you have 20 plus years of records.
Right. Like I just want to be like, oh, that'd be cool. Like that's going to be a neat thing to do. One thing that everybody's talking about that I kind of, it's funny because I read an article recently about these guys that are like basement hacking their DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about this before briefly on this show, but like just being interested in your DNA has become like
be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.